Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the championship round of the 2025 Tournament of Champions. For those of you who don't know, this year's field is our largest yet at 46 teams from not just around the whole country, but the entire world. Those teams were split into two divisions, and the winners of each of those divisions will be facing off very shortly in our championship round, where one of them will win our 2025 competition. But before we turn the show over to them, I want to take a moment to introduce our panel of final round judges. This group of individuals are extraordinary, accomplished competitors, coaches, and have won everything from All-Americans, national championships, and everything in between. So, first off, if we could get Emberlyn on screen. This is Emberlyn St. Hilaire. Emberlyn is a rising senior on the University of Chicago's mock trial team. Over the past 3 years, she's earned 12 individual awards, including an all-regional, all-national, and all-American awards. Her team has won the American Mock Trial Association's Rookie Rumble Summer Tournament in both 2023 and 2024. And most recently, she was a captain and competitor for the University of Chicago team that won the 40th AMTA National Championship in 2025. And this summer, she will compete at Trial by Combat in Philadelphia. It's a competition hosted by UCLA Law and Drexel Law, and it selects the top 16 collegiate competitors across the entire country. So it's an incredible accomplishment, and we wish Emberlyn the best of luck this summer. Oh, I think, Hank, we're having some audio issues. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce John and Lindsay Church. So John and Lindsay Church have coached the Hillsdale College Mock Trial Program since 2017. John is a lecturer in rhetoric and public address at Hillsdale College and earned his JD from the University of Michigan in May 2025. He is also currently working with the Hillsdale County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. Lindsay is a teacher and received her master's from the University of Dallas in 2024. And together, they have led Hillsdale to competitive success at the national level. In 2022, the team qualified to the AMTA National Championship for the first time in program history. And in 2023, they placed second in their division at nationals. In 2024, Hillsdale advanced to the final round and finished as the AMTA National Championship runner-up. Lindsay and John, thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. So our next final round panelist is going to be Josiah Jones. Josiah, can you go ahead and come on screen? Josiah is an assistant coach for the University of California Irvine's mock trial team. He competed with UC Irvine mock trial from 2020 to 2024, serving as both the program's president and A-team captain. Over his 4 years with the program, Josiah earned more than 20 individual awards as both an attorney and a witness, including 2 All-American Attorney Awards. He competed twice at Trial by Combat and placed second in the 2023 competition. Josiah graduated from UC Irvine in 2024 and is a JD candidate at the Drexel University's Klein School of Law. Before entering law school, he worked as a legal assistant for Everett Dory, a civil litigation firm based in Irvine, California. Josiah, thank you so much for joining us today.
The next judge that we'll be introducing is Danielle Jacoby. Danielle, if you could please come on screen. Danielle is an incoming Dean's Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School. Before starting law school, she worked as an assistant managing clerk at Wilkie Farr and Gallagher in New York City. Danielle graduated from Emory University in 2023, where she was a 4-year member of the university's mock trial team. She served as both the program's president and A-team captain during the 2022-2023 season. Over the course of her undergraduate career, Danielle earned 15 individual awards, including 2 All-American awards. In 2023, she was selected to compete at Trial by Combat, where she placed 8th in the country. We're so happy to have you, Danielle.
Our next panelist is going to be Jeff Bloom. Jeff, will you go ahead and join the screen? Jeff is the Director of Advocacy at Mercer University's School of Law, where he teaches trial advocacy and leads Mercer's trial teams. Before joining Mercer, he practiced as a trial attorney in the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore metropolitan areas, trying hundreds of cases before the District of Columbia Superior Court, Maryland Circuit Court, and Maryland District Court. He has also argued before the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit and federal trial courts in the region. Jeff is a graduate of the University of Southern California and the University of Miami School of Law, and he previously taught trial advocacy at the University of Illinois College of Law. Since joining Mercer, Jeff has significantly expanded the strength and reach of the school's advocacy program. This past year, Mercer's trials teams finished second in the nation, were finalists at the Tournament of Champions at the law school level, and placed in 25 separate advocacy programs. His leadership has made Mercer one of the top trial advocacy programs in the country. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being here tonight.
Our next judge is Sam Jahangir. Sam, if you could come on screen. I have to take a deep breath for this one because Sam has quite a bit of accomplishments. Sam is the Associate Director of Advocacy at the University of Illinois College of Law, where he teaches and coaches trial advocacy, moot court, and alternative dispute resolution. Before entering academia, he spent over 7 years as an associate at Jenner and Block in Chicago. He earned his JD with honors from the University of Chicago Law School in 2016, where he was involved in the Edwin F. Mandel Legal Aid Clinic's Civil Rights and Police Accountability Project. While in law school, he received the Thomas R. Mulrow Prize for Excellency in Advocacy and Oral Argument and won the Saul Lefkowitz Moot Court Competition. Sam completed his undergraduate studies at Northwestern University, where he competed in collegiate mock trial. He currently serves on the board of directors for the American Mock Trial Association and has been the head coach of the University of Chicago undergraduate mock trial program since 2015. During his now 10-year leadership, the team has received honorable mention or finished in the top 10 at every single AMTA Nationals, including multiple final round appearances. Over the past year, Sam's team won the 40th American Mock Trial Association National Championship, as well as both the Collegiate Mock Trial One-on-One Attorney Competition and the Collegiate One-on-One Mock Trial Witness Competition. Thank you so much for coming, Sam. We really appreciate you being here.
Next, I am excited to introduce Will Warahay. Will is an attorney in the Morgan & Morgan Atlanta office and the head coach of the Georgia Tech mock trial program. He earned both his undergraduate degree in political science and his JD from Elon University, graduating from Elon Law in 2010. During law school, he served as an executive member of the Moot Court Board and received the David Jurgen Award for Leadership and Professionalism. Will previously served as an adjunct professor at Elon University School of Law, and since 2014, he's been a lecturer at Georgia Tech, where he teaches trial advocacy and coaches the nationally ranked Georgia Tech mock trial team. Under his leadership, the team has achieved multiple top 10 finishes at the AMTA National Championship Tournament. He also serves on the American Mock Trial Association's board of directors and served as president of the American Mock Trial Association from 2018 to 2020. Will has served on AMTA's executive committee since 2012, and this past year was awarded the Neil Smith Award for his long-term contributions to AMTA's educational mission and furthering law-related education. Thank you so much, Will, for judging with us tonight. All right, last but not least, it is my honor to introduce our presiding judge for our championship round, Judge David Nelmark. Judge Nelmark serves as a district court judge for the 5th Judicial District of Iowa. He was appointed to the bench in 2019 and is based in Polk County. Judge Nelmark received his BA from Drake University in 1999 and his JD from Stanford Law School in 2005. Prior to his appointment, he practiced law at Gislason and Hunter LLP and Bell & McCormick PC. He is a past president of both the American Mock Trial Association and the Polk County Bar Association and serves on the boards of directors for both organizations. Judge Nelmark is also the recipient of the Congressman Neil Smith Award, which recognizes outstanding contributions to AMTA's educational mission. He's also the co-author of Championship Mock Trial, the guide for students and coaches, a widely used resource for mock trial participants and educators. And I can say I've read this book, I've used it. It is an excellent resource, I strongly recommend. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Judge Nelmark to begin our 2025 final round, and good luck to all of our competitors.
Thank you. Counsel, show me your cameras. Let me know if you have any pretrial matters. Anything from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. First, may we make introductions?
Please.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Vivian May, and alongside my friend and co-counsel, Ms. Cristiana Garcia,
Good evening, Your Honor.
we represent the state of Moorville.
All right, defense counsel, go ahead.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Abigail Tai, along with my co-counsel, Ms. Karen Ang. Good evening, Your Honor. And collectively, we represent the defendant in today's case, which is Ms. Toni Hering.
Thank you. Any pretrial matters from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. First, we'd like to invoke Rules 603 and 615, constructively swearing in and sequestering all witnesses, barring party representatives.
We'll do so.
Second, we'd like to draw the court's attention to stipulations 12 and 13, pre-admitted exhibits. Would Your Honor like me to go through them one by one?
No, I can read them. I'll assume there's no objection unless someone tells me otherwise.
Yes, Your Honor. Next, we'd like to designate Agent Russell as our party representative.
Okay.
Next, Your Honor, we'd like to ask for Your Honor's preferences on striking from the record. In the event that an objection is sustained, would Your Honor prefer us to motion to strike or simply assume offending testimony is stricken?
What's your preference?
We're fine with whatever Your Honor decides.
Let's assume that if the objection is sustained, that the testimony is stricken.
Yes, Your Honor. And finally, we'd just like to ask Your Honor's preferences on screen sharing, since it is our first time in Your Honor's presence.
Not sure I understand the question.
Your Honor, we just asked that would Your Honor like us to request a screen share or simply let the record reflect?
Well, if you want to show something that's not yet evidence, ask permission to show it. If it's something that's been admitted, you don't need permission to show it. And if that doesn't answer your question, try again, because I don't follow.
Yes, Your Honor. That sounds good. And with that, the prosecution's ready to get this show on the road.
Okay. Any additional pretrial matters from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, we'd like to note for the court that we have a party representative as well. That's the defendant in today's case, Ms. Toni Hering.
Noted.
And also, we'd like to bring the court's attention to stipulation 11. My co-counsel will just screen share that for me. Which states that Shauna Eckhart was diagnosed with terminal kidney cancer on April 26, 2023. She passed away on July 6th of 2023, and both parties agree that Shauna Eckhart is an unavailable witness as defined by 804A.
Okay.
And with that, the defense is ready to proceed.
All right. We'll begin with the plaintiff's opening statement whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
She conspired to cripple her competition. The defendant, a woman named Toni Hering, is skating. She's skating just a locker room away from her biggest competition. And she isn't just practicing. She's waiting for someone to charge in and cripple her competition. See, Miss Hering wanted to be the best, but there was one person who continuously beat her. That person was Nikki Corrigan. And you'll hear today that there was only one competition to qualify to the Olympics. One spot that would make or break the defendant's career. Coming in second place was not an option. And so, just one day before the competition that would determine her future, the defendant knew she wasn't going to win. So she conspired with her bodyguard to attack Miss Corrigan. She conspired to cripple her competition. And today, the state charges the defendant, Miss Toni Hering, with obstruction of justice and conspiracy, and thus will prove beyond every reasonable doubt that the defendant knowingly destroyed evidence and knowingly worked with another person to carry out this crime. Now we understand. Well, this is a high burden. It's not impossible to meet. Because members of the jury, there's already something we know beyond a reasonable doubt. This is Shauna Eckhart, the defendant's bodyguard. And you'll learn today that she has already pleaded guilty to attacking Miss Corrigan. And so now the question before you is whether or not the defendant conspired with her bodyguard to commit this crime. But today, we'll show you that she not only conspired, she tried to cover it up. And we'll do that with two simple facts: competition and the conspiracy. So first, the competition. Today, you'll hear from the defendant's coach that the defendant was terrified that her competition would beat her in the Olympic qualifiers. You'll learn that the defendant has always been second best to Miss Corrigan. And the press, the coaches, even the skating world believed that Nikki Corrigan would win yet again. So second, the conspiracy. An FBI agent will take that stand today and show you text conversations from the day of the crime between the defendant and her bodyguard, conspiring to hide evidence. You'll learn that the two items used in the attack that disappeared from the crime scene, well, they were found under a floorboard in the defendant's home. She conspired to cripple her competition. The defendant thought she'd never be caught. The defendant thought there'd be no one to hold her accountable. But today, as members of the jury, you have the power to hold her accountable for her crimes. And that's why, at the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Ms. Cristiana Garcia, will stand before you and ask you to reach the only just verdict. Find the defendant guilty.
Thank you. Counsel for the defense, you may proceed with your oath when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. They already got their guy. A woman sits in her jail cell. Her heart's beating fast. She's angry, betrayed, hurt by the one person she never thought would abandon her. Her own sister. And that woman in the cell, her name is Shauna Eckhart. And she loves her sister. To the point where she saw her sister's opponent threaten everything her sister worked for, Shauna did what she had to do, alone. She attacked her sister's opponent, and she confessed to it. But that person she did it for, my client, Miss Herding, now she didn't even know about it. She didn't thank her. She didn't help her get away with it. Instead, she said, "You made your bed, and now you're gonna go die in it." You just heard the prosecution come up here and tell you a story about a woman who conspired to cripple her competition. You'll hear that that's true. But that woman who did that, that was Shauna Eckhart, and only Shauna Eckhart. Now, you might be wondering why you're here today when the prosecution already got their guy. Because today you're going to learn that my client, Ms. Herding, she wasn't even a suspect in today's case. Not until Ms. Eckhart cut a deal. The terms are simple. Give the prosecution information, and the 35-year sentence drops to a year and a half. So out of spite, Ms. Eckhart gave the name Toni Hering. They already got their guy. Today, the prosecution bears the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt my client is guilty. And that means that they have to start from zero. And from there, they have to prove their case step by step, fact by fact, pushing against the presumption of innocence until one,
reasonable explanation remains. They're not going to be able to do that. 2 questions I'd like you to keep in mind throughout today's trial. 1, did Miss Herding need to do it? And 2, did Miss Herding even plan to do it? Start with the first one. Did she need to do it? Today you're going to hear from Miss Herding herself. And she's going to tell you that despite the competition, she didn't need to hurt someone to win. She's going to tell you that she'd been practicing to the point where both her and her coach believed that she was good enough to make it to the Olympics. Now, the second one, did she plan to do it? And today, you're going to hear from a reporter, and she's going to tell you about how she followed Miss Eckhart around in the days leading up to the attack, but not once did she see her conspiring with my client. They've already got their guy. Members of the jury, the woman sitting over there in the defendant's chair, that's not Shauna Eckhart. It's Toni Herding. So with every piece of evidence they bring, ask yourself, is that really Miss Herding? Or was that just Shauna Eckhart all along? Because if it was, you have to find her innocent. Because they've already got their guy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, counsel. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed with your witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we call Agent Russell to the stand. May I proceed?
May.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am.
Please, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jamie Russell.
What do you do for work?
Well, my kids, they like to think I'm a spy like James Bond, but really, I'm just good old Jamie Russell. I'm a senior special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI.
What type of crimes do you deal with the FBI?
We deal with violent crimes like assaults, murders, robberies. I mean, it's a hard job, but I guess it just makes me appreciate my own family a little bit more.
Did you investigate the assault of ice skater Nikki Corrigan?
Yes, I was the lead investigator.
What happened to her?
Well, on January 6th of 2022, it was at this ice skating arena. And the skater, Nikki Corrigan, was assaulted by a masked individual who struck her in the knee with a hammer and unfortunately caused multiple leg injuries.
How did you investigate?
Well, what I did is I looked over all the evidence. I spoke with some witnesses, all the while using something known as the CCC method. It's gold standard in my field.
Stating for the record, we'll now be screen sharing a slideshow made by Agent Russell. What's your method?
So this CCC method, it stands for 1, the crime, 2nd, the clues, and 3rd, the conspiracy.
First, let's talk about the crime. Did you ever identify the attacker?
Yes, so this attacker was actually identified based on a video of them fleeing the scene. Actually, let's roll that video and I'll guide you folks through what happened.
All right, ma'am. Let the record reflect we're going to be playing Exhibit 12B, which has been pre-admitted into evidence per Stipulation 12.
Right, so what we're seeing here is this woman is running from the main entrance of the skating rink. She throws 2 items into the bushes, and then she drives away.
Who's the woman?
So I was able to recognize that person in the footage as the defendant's bodyguard and stepsister Shauna Eckhart, who I had previously met.
Did you investigate that bodyguard a little bit further?
Yeah, so after seeing this video, I actually interviewed her the day after the event, and she confessed to being the attacker.
Let the record reflect, we're going to be screen sharing Agent Russell's interview with the bodyguard, which is Exhibit 14B. What's on screen?
That's one of the interviews with the bodyguard, Miss Eckhart.
Your Honor, Stern v. McAllister 2023 set a precedence allowing parties to read excerpts of stipulations onto the record as evidence. With your permission, we'd be doing that with Exhibit 14B.
Any objection from the defense?
No objections, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
From what you learned in this deposition, did the bodyguard work alone?
No. So actually, as you see highlighted in yellow there, Miss Eckhart said, well, someone else was involved, Toni. From start to finish, I did all the hard parts, though.
According to the bodyguard, how was the defendant involved?
Well, highlighted in yellow again, she said Toni started figuring out when and where to do it. Toni wanted it close enough to nationals that Nikki wouldn't have time to recover.
The defense says that the defendant didn't need to do this crime. Well, can you tell us who ended up winning that event?
It was the defendant. They won first place qualifying for the Olympics.
And up to that point, did the defendant ever win those type of competitions?
So my oldest daughter is a huge fan of skating, and so I was all caught up in their history, but there was a lot of tension between Nikki Corrigan and Toni Hering, and it was all leading up to this ice skating championship.
Got it. So we're going to talk about your second C in the triple C method. What does it stand for?
It stands for clues. So we already had a confession, and now it was time to see if there were any clues of that conspiracy.
Agent, the defense just said a moment ago that you already got your girl. Was that true?
No. So while the bodyguard lied, we didn't use her testimony solely, right? So we used her words as a stepping stone. We followed what she said, and we found other evidence to corroborate that outline.
What evidence?
Yes, so the day of the attack, the defendant actually admitted to being at the rink during that attack, and we recovered phone messages showing communication between the bodyguard and the defendant minutes before the attack.
What's on screen?
Those are the messages we found.
Take a look at it, ma'am. Can you tell us if they're fair and accurate?
Yes, from the looks of it, yes.
We move to enter Exhibit 7A and 7B into evidence.
Any objection to 7A and 7B?
Yes, Your Honor, particularly to the grayish white bubbles on the left side. That's hearsay, Your Honor.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. As the defense just said, there are two different declarants in this test message. First, the blue text, which are the defendants, and then the gray, which are actually the bodyguards. Your Honor, there's an exception to hearsay under Rule 801B2E, statements made by a co-conspirator during a furtherance of a conspiracy, hence this isn't hearsay. Your Honor?
Go ahead.
In order for them to fulfill the preponderance of the evidence, they need to prove that it is more likely than not that my client conspired with Ms. Eckhart. However, there's actually a case law about this. I believe that's Morville v. Pesky. And it says that this piece of evidence may be conditionally admitted if the prosecution can prove by the end of this trial by a preponderance of evidence. However, we don't believe you should do this because you can't unring a bell. If in the event that the prosecution doesn't prove by a preponderance of evidence, the jury can't unsee or unhear what has been already shown to them. We would like them to lay that foundation before entering it.
So are you asking me to reserve ruling?
Your Honor, we're asking you to not admit this evidence at the moment.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
No, the objection to 7A is overruled. 7A is admitted. Is there any objection to 7B?
No objections, Your Honor.
Yeah, 7A and 7B are admitted.
Yes. What do these texts say?
Minutes before the attack, the defendant had texted NC off ice and then come now and fast. Then the bodyguard, Shauna Eckhart, said, Roger, hammer emoji.
What about the other text?
So a few minutes later, the bodyguard said, next stop, then the China flag emojis. And just to put this into context, China was the country hosting the Olympics.
How did the defendant respond?
The defendant said, we need to get rid of the stuff first. The bodyguard said, ditched wolf mask and hammer in the bushes, and the defendant agreed to take care of it.
Let's talk about the last step in your triple C method. What was that last C for?
It stands for conspiracy. So the bodyguard had fled the scene and they left a hammer and a mask hidden in the nearby bush, as you can see in those two photos.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation.
Thoughts?
Your Honor, per stipulation 12, this exhibit has already been pre-admitted, and both parties have waived all objections to these two exhibits.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I'm objecting to the foundation being laid as to how the witness knows about these two exhibits. We haven't heard any of that foundation been laid yet.
If the stipulation allows the exhibits are in evidence. Was there an objection to the discussion about the exhibit as opposed to the exhibit?
No, Your Honor, I'm objecting to the witnesses, the foundation that the witness has not laid that they know these two, of how they know these two exhibits.
If you're going to question the witness further about her knowledge of the exhibits or their contents, you'll have to lay that foundation.
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, it's true that you were the investigator of this case?
Right, the lead investigator, yes.
Did you investigate the perimeter of that arena?
I did. We went through the entire ice skating rink. We looked through the video footage and found these two items in the nearby bush.
Did you find these items anywhere else in your investigation?
We did. We found that mask, hammer, and a note hidden in the floorboards of the defendant's house during a federally authorized search.
Are these the items you found?
Yes, I believe so. The same ones.
Co-counsel, may we please get the next slide up?
Those ones as well.
Looks fair and accurate?
I would say so, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we move to enter Exhibit 18A and 18B.
Objection to 18A and 18B.
No objections, Your Honor.
18A and B are admitted.
Are people allowed to take evidence from crime scenes?
I mean, just like I teach my kids not to steal toys from each other, in reality, no. In the United States, when someone does that, it's called obstruction of justice.
A moment ago, you mentioned something about a note. Is this the note you found underneath the floorboard?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Has it been changed in any way?
No, it looks the same from when we found it.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 18D.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
As we've already established, this is a document found in the defendant's home. And as we agreed upon during pretrial, the defendant's statements are hearsay under Rule 801 D2.
Your Honor,
Yes.
just because this was found in the defendant's home doesn't mean the defendant actually wrote this. Now, I could write "I love chocolate chip cookies" down on my notepad and write TH, but that doesn't mean Toni Hering wrote that.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Briefly.
Miss Heng's right. You could take a notepad and a pen and write something down. But when it's found in someone's house, by a preponderance of the evidence, that is enough to make it admissible. As we've already proven, it was found in the defendant's house, which by preponderance of the evidence allows it to come in under Rule 801 D2.
Objections overruled. 18D is admitted.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you read the note?
Yes. One day before Miss Corrigan was attacked, she wrote these daily affirmations, writing things like, "I am enough, I will win, I am the best, and I will beat Nikki at all costs."
Taking a step back, Agent Russell, what's your conclusion on this case?
Well, based on all the evidence that we saw, the FBI concluded that the defendant conspired with her bodyguard, Shauna Eckhart, to unfortunately cripple Miss Corrigan.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions.
Defense may proceed with cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Karen Eng, and I just have a few questions I'd like to ask you on behalf of the defense.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Ma'am, let's start off by talking about something you mentioned in your direct examination. You told us that you found this note in Miss Herding's house.
Right.
You're telling us that Miss Herding wrote that.
That's true. Based on all the evidence that we saw? Yes.
I'd just like to make one thing clear. Ma'am, you're not a forensic handwriting analyst, are you?
I'm not, but I'm the lead investigator with the FBI.
But as the lead investigator at the FBI, you never got a forensic handwriting analyst to analyze that note?
No.
Let's move on. I'd like to talk about how you went about with your investigation. You showed us a method on your direct examination, is that correct?
The Triple C method, yes.
It was crime, clues, and conspiracy, yes?
Right.
Gold standard.
Yes.
You used that method a lot?
I did.
All of your investigations?
Yes.
So the method that you brought to today's case, that was designed to look for conspiracy?
Not necessarily. So, as the FBI, we look at all the evidence. And I mean, the Triple C method defines it in 3 key categories. But obviously, that can change based on each trial, each case. And so these are just 3 words to put all the evidence into an outline so it's more cohesive for the jurors. So that's a no to your question.
Ma'am, the last C in your method, that was conspiracy, yes?
Right.
Let's move on. I want to talk about a couple of things that we agree on. Whether or not you already got your guy. Ma'am, we can agree that Miss Corrigan was attacked.
Right, yes.
We can agree that Shauna Eckhart attacked her.
You're correct.
We can agree that you even have evidence of that.
Yes, that's true.
You have eyewitness testimony?
Could you repeat yourself? I think it cut out.
I'm sorry, ma'am. You have eyewitness testimony?
Just my interview with Shauna Eckhart and the evidence I found in the defendant's house. So, no.
All right. Now, in that interview that you conducted with Miss Shauna Eckhart, she gave you a full confession.
Right, yes.
Now, ma'am, on direct examination, you showed us a video footage of her leaving the scene of the crime, yes?
I did.
Now, let's talk about if you have any evidence against Miss Herding. Because Miss Herding, she wasn't in that video, was she?
No,
You don't have her in any video, do you?
I don't.
You don't have a video of her taking a mask and a hammer from those bushes?
I don't, but I found the mask and hammer in her house.
Ma'am, was that a yes to my question? You don't have footage of her taking the mask and hammer from those bushes?
I don't.
In fact, ma'am, you don't have any footage of what happened after Miss Eckhart drives away.
Right.
Ma'am, I'd like to move on and talk about whether or not we can trust your evidence. You'd agree that your evidence needs to be credible.
Yes.
You'd agree that your sources need to be credible.
Right.
Now, Miss Eckhart, she was the one who told you that Miss Herding was involved.
That's true.
But Miss Eckhart, she's got a complicated relationship with the truth, doesn't she?
Yes, I believe so.
Now, the first time you talked to her, she was with Miss Herding.
Yes, that's correct.
But the second time you talked to her, she told you that she didn't even know Miss Herding?
That's correct as well.
Let's see if that's all she said. Because you also showed her that footage that you had of her, yes?
I did.
And then she told you that that footage was tampered with.
That's correct.
You wouldn't rely on tampered footage in your investigation, would you?
Right, which is why we used much more evidence, including the mask, the wolf mask, the hammer, and the note found in the defendant's house alongside the testimony and the video. So my job as a lead investigator is I'm not only looking for the testimony or the videos, but I'm finding other evidence to corroborate that.
Yeah.
And that's how we determine the truth.
Yeah. We're talking about the video here, ma'am. Now that video, that was not tampered, yes?
Right.
And when when you told Miss Shauna Eckhart that, she then told you that the person in the video was her twin sister named Shano.
Objection. As to character evidence, may I be heard?
Yes.
Your Honor, the defense just mentioned 2 instances of the bodyguard lying. We believe they're using the character trait of dishonesty for propensity purposes, saying that she lied to the FBI once, hence she was more likely to lie to FBI about conspiring to cripple the competition with her sister.
Your Honor,
Yes.
as per Rule 608, this evidence is admissible to prove 608 a witness's character for truthfulness or untruthfulness. This type of evidence is admissible as a witness's credibility may be attacked or supported by testimony of the witness's reputation of having a character of being untruthful. That's what we're doing with Ms. Shauna Eckhart here.
Your
Objection
Honor, may I
overruled.
be heard?
No, objection overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Russell, up until now, that's 3 times she struggled with the truth.
That's right. Yes.
3 times she gave you false information.
That's correct.
And up until that point, never mentioned Miss Herding.
That's right.
Ma'am, I want to talk about why she changed her testimony. Now, you were the one who told her that she'd be looking at years in prison.
Right.
She could have gotten 35 years in jail.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
And you told her that if she helped you with your investigation, you get a lesser sentence.
It's called a plea deal. So plea deals are extremely common in court and very standard in my line of work. And it's like I tell my kids, I won't be mad if you're telling the truth. But what we do is we offer them this lesser sentence, and it just creates this environment where they're more inclined to tell the truth. But that's a yes to your question.
Now, Miss Eckhart, she was offered a plea, yes?
Like I said, yes.
Would you recognize a copy of that plea deal if I showed it to you?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to screen share what has been pre-marked as Exhibit E.
Granted.
Now, Ms. Russell, is this a fair and accurate copy of the plea deal offered to Ms. Eckert?
I believe so. Yes.
Has it been altered in any way?
And not to my knowledge, no.
The defense moves to enter Exhibit 15 into evidence.
Any objection to 15?
No objections, Your Honor. We're fine with this in evidence.
15 is admitted.
Now, that plea deal, 18 months in jail.
Yes, that's the way a plea deal works.
As opposed to the 35 years she could have gotten without that deal.
It's a lesser sentence. Yes.
Now, that only happens if she cooperated. Yes?
That's the way a plea deal works. Yes.
Ma'am, first time she ever mentions Toni Hering, that is after that plea deal. Yes?
Right. When she took it.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
May redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. I want to pick up where Miss Eng just left off. Mamie kept saying in your line of work, it's customary for plea deals. What do you mean?
Right. So like I said, plea deals are extremely common in our court. And even though they might be more inclined to tell the truth, because of that, the system has these checks in place to kind of discourage or, I guess, catch false accusations. And that's why it was my job to corroborate Ms. Eckhart's story with independent facts. And here, with the mask, the hammer, and the note, I found no evidence that she was lying because all that evidence corroborated her previous testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, Your Honor, no further questions. May Agent Russell please get back to her daughters?
Is cross permitted in this jurisdiction?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
All right. The witness is excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prosecution may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. We call Mr. Darcy Rollson to the stand.
Can you guys see me all right?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Rollson, we can see you.
Perfect. Sorry, it's with this technology and I think the youngsters they call it the Zoom call. So I appreciate you bearing with me there for a second.
No worries, sir. Can you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Of course. Evening, everybody. The name's Darcy Rollson.
Sir, where are you from?
I was born right here in Moorville. This town raised me. Still here, still skating. Don't have a family of my own yet, but hey, I figure if I got time to find the right person, maybe I can start one up. Never too late, right?
Certainly not, sir. So what do you do for a living?
Well, to understand that, we have to go back. I grew up on a farm and first skated on an ice rink at Portland when I was 7 years old. An Achilles injury ended my competitive days. But as my great Aunt Patty used to say, winners fail until they succeed. So I turned to coaching to help other youngsters chase gold.
So, sir, how do you know the defendant?
I've been coaching her since she was just 4 years old. She could barely stand at skates at first, bless her heart. But she worked hard, really hard. I watched her grow from a nervous little gal into one of the best skaters I've ever trained.
So, sir, do you know why the defendant's on trial today?
Yes, ma'am. A violent incident occurred between her and a competitor, Nikki Corrigan.
All right, sir. So let's see if the defendant had a reason to conspire to cripple the competition. Is the defendant a talented skater?
Oh, absolutely. She's got that spark, talent for days. If everything had gone right, she could have even made it to the Olympics. 2022 was her last shot, though.
Sir, what do you mean it was her last shot?
Well, she was getting up there in age for a competitive skater. The sport is brutal that way. She never went to college either, so that year's Olympics was kind of her last swing at the dream.
And how would she qualify for the Olympics?
She'd have to win her division at the U.S. Olympic trials. Just first place. No second chances, no wild cards. It's a one and done deal.
And from what you saw, did you think she was going to qualify?
Early on, yes, ma'am. She was on fire, winning event after event. But then came Nikki Corrigan.
Who's Nikki Corrigan?
You see, she was this fresh-faced skater, and she began taking first in every competition, and Tona ended up second more and more. The thing is, only that first-place skater gets to go to the Olympics.
So let's see how the defendant was doing. Sir, permission to screen share what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 3, the skating records, along with a visual aid that will be outside the view of the witness.
Brandon?
Sir, this is Exhibit 3. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
Of course, this here's a result sheet for all the competitions organized by the USFSA from September 2016 to January 2022.
Fair and accurate?
It is, ma'am.
The prosecution moves to enter Exhibit 3 into evidence.
3A and 3B?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
None at this time, Your Honor. This exhibit is pre-admitted, I believe.
Yeah. 3A and 3B are admitted.
Sir, looking at these records, what can you tell us?
Well, Tony was always winning competitions. Up, down, left, right, you name it, she was winning. Up until February 2020, that was, when Nikki started competing as well.
What happened when Nikki started competing?
Tony started taking second place after second place.
And so let's talk about how the defendant acted on the day of the attack. What was she doing that day?
Well, she was practicing, but instead of focusing on skating, she kept focusing on her phone. You know, this generation and their phones and this TikTok, it's crazy.
So what did you do?
Around 2:15 p.m., I finally took the phone from her, and that's when I caught a glimpse of her text with that bodyguard of hers.
What happened next?
Well, I heard this terrific crash and this loud scream. I ran over in the hallway and saw Nikki was on the ground, holding her knee and crying out, "Why? Why?"
What was the defendant's reaction?
Well, not long after, I spotted Toni crouched down near some bushes outside. Looked kind of odd, but I figured she just needed some alone time, so I didn't bother her.
Do you know what the defendant was doing when she crouched by those bushes?
Well, ma'am, I can't say for certain, though from my point of view, it looked like she was picking up something. Now, don't let this gray hair fool you. My vision's sharp as an eagle's. But either way, I didn't want to push it, so I just went back inside.
And did the police ever find out who crippled Miss Corrigan?
Yes, I found out from a news story that Shauna Eckhart, Tona's bodyguard, was the one who confessed to hurting Nikki.
And what did you do after you found out the defendant's competition was crippled?
Well, I went up to Toni and I asked her, "Do you know anything about Shauna's arrest and this incident?"
And what was Toni's reaction?
Well, she fired me on the spot. Didn't even say goodbye, didn't even answer my question, just got rid of me.
Sir, how do you feel about getting fired?
I was angry. Felt like I got hit by a truck when I first heard it. Don't think I'll ever forgive her, but just try to move on, suppress my emotions. I just want to now wish the best for whatever Toni has in the future for her.
Thank you so much for your time today, sir. Your Honor, at this point, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Abigail Ty, and I'll be asking you a few questions. Is that okay?
Good morning, Abigail. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Sir, you mentioned just in your direct that you saw Miss Herding hiding in the bushes.
Yes, crouch down near him.
Right, but I want to make it clear. You didn't see her take anything from the bushes, right?
Oh no, I can't say for certain, though it looked like she was taking something.
Right, so I want to make it clear. You didn't, but you said that because of your good eyesight, you saw her picking up something?
Oh, well, I appreciate the compliment. But yes, it looked like she was rustling around trying to get something out of there.
Is your sworn testimony that you saw Miss Herding picking something up?
I said I can't be certain she was picking up, but it looked like she was trying to. Can't be for certain, ma'am.
So you don't know for sure what you see. Is that a yes or no?
Correct. This eyesight's good, but I can't go over and like a ghost and see what's really happening. You got that right, ma'am.
All right, let's move on and talk about the rest of your testimony. I want to put your testimony in context for the members of the jury. Mr. Rawlingson, my client, she was the one who hurt you, wasn't she?
Uh, Hurt me. I don't recall her ever punching me in the face or nothing like that. No, no, ma'am.
Well, not physically, sir, but you did dedicate over 20 years of your life for Miss Herding.
I see what you're getting at. Yeah, yes, ma'am. After 20 years of hard work and service, she fired me.
Right, she's fired you right on the spot, didn't she?
She did, ma'am.
And that hit you so hard that you couldn't even process it at first?
You got that right.
And that also made your other students leave you, didn't it?
Yeah, it was hard to get back their trust, and so I ended up leaving coaching for good and just try to settle down. You have that right.
Right. But after you were fired, you went straight to the FBI to turn Miss Herding in.
Not immediately after, ma'am.
Ma'am, sir, sorry. Sir, is there a sworn testimony that after you realized Miss Herding was in on this conspiracy, you didn't go straight to the FBI?
Yes, I went straight to the FBI once I realized Toni was involved. I didn't go straight to the FBI after she fired me, though.
Right, but you went after she fired you, right?
Some time in the intervening time, about a month or so. You got that right.
Now, I just want to make one thing clear. You'd agree with me that you'll never forgive Miss Herding for what she did.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, sir, but I want to talk about how you felt of my client before all of that happened. Isn't it true, just like you said, that my client was the best student you've ever had?
Yes, and she looked like she had a great deal of potential, and it showed out there on the ice rink.
You'd say she's pure talent?
Precisely so, ma'am.
Now, you just told us, you just told the members of the jury a lot about her behavior prior to the Nationals. But, sir, isn't it also true that prior to the Nationals, my client started trying harder than ever?
Yeah, it was because before then, you got that Nikki Corrigan gal, and that got her real worked up. She tried to work as hard as she can and not only get to the Olympics, but also beat Nikki. You have that right.
Right, get to the Olympics. And she started pushing herself relentlessly?
Yes, ma'am, it was really quite a spectacle. Took a lot of hard work for her.
You'd say it even surprised you that she started landing combinations that she wasn't able to before.
Yes, ma'am, it was truly something special.
And even herself told you confidently that I can skate. Athletes have comebacks all the time. Why should I be any different? I'm not, right?
I was so glad to see that she got all this confidence back in her.
I have nothing further.
A redirect examination.
No redirect, Your Honor. May Mr. Rawlinson be excused?
Yes, the witness is excused.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Are there any further witnesses on behalf of the prosecution?
No, Your Honor. The state rests.
Does a 5-minute break before proceeding with defense sound good?
That'd be great, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sounds good to the state as well.
I'll see you in 5 minutes. Thank you. By count, it's been 5 minutes, so we'll start logging back on here. Is anyone waiting on anyone, or does anyone know a reason we should not get started?
Your Honor, the state's here and ready to proceed.
Your Honor, the defense is also present and ready to proceed.
And hearing no objections from anyone else, the defense may call your first witness.
The defense calls Miss Aubrey Shatz to the stand.
You may proceed.
Good evening, Miss Shatz. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good evening, good day, good night, wherever you are. My name is Aubrey Shatz. Honored to be here.
Ma'am, what do you do for a living?
Oh, let me tell you, I am living. I do what my mom taught me to do since I was in her womb in New Zealand. I gossip.
I'm sorry, ma'am, you gossip?
Well, let's put it like this. I am an investigative journalist for the Moon.
Ma'am, what's the Moon?
The Moon? Does it not ring a bell? Well, all right. It's a publication, an amazing one at that. We really pride ourselves on getting to the bottom of things, uncovering all the juicy details that the public just needs to know, because that is true journalism.
All right, then, journalists, what do you typically cover for in the Moon?
Well, all types of news, but especially the latest hot tea, if you will. See, the customers are lined up and you've got to keep the tea brewing. Well, sometimes I had to run with my gut feelings about things, but then that's just how the industry works.
Of course, ma'am. How are you involved in today's case?
See, I got to publish my observations and findings that I believe are directly related to the incident on January 7th where figure skater Nikki Corrigan got clubbed in the knee.
Ma'am, let's start from the beginning. How did you even get involved with this Nikki Corrigan thing?
Oh, well, you want to hear some tea? See, in the figure skating world, there's two biggest stars that you got to know, especially if you call yourself a journalist. It's Toni Hering and Nikki Corrigan, and we portray them as rivals.
Of course. And how did you go about with your investigation or your journalism?
Well, see, to survive in this industry, we have to be on the constant lookout for these stories. And stories that people eat up the most are feuds or like rivalries, See, Toni Herding was the star of the ice. Number one, basically, before Nikki Corrigan came out of nowhere and started beating her. So I had to find out more about this, especially with the Olympics just around the corner.
How did you go about with finding that out?
So you see, I snooped on Toni first, because a girl's gotta do what she gotta do. So I attended Toni Herding's skating rehearsals. But every time I saw her practicing, see, there was this, weird lady there.
Well, ma'am, what was this weird lady doing?
Well, there was this one time where that lady kept on screaming during Toni Herding's practices, so much so that Toni kept on saying, "Shauna, leave me alone." So I assumed her first name was Shauna.
Well, could you ever confirm who she was?
I did. See, there was this other incident where she was screaming at the top of her lungs again, but not at Toni. It was at some kid who happened to be skating too close to Toni Herding on the ice. So Toni Herding's coach said, "Eckhart, You need to calm down. So I got home, I Googled her, and I found a picture. And boy, it sure did match that weird lady's face.
I'd like to move on, talk about January 6th. Could you tell us what happened that day?
January 6th. See, that's the day before the competition that would determine whether Toni Hering or Nikki Corrigan got into the Olympics. But that's also the day before Nikki Corrigan got clubbed in the knee. And let me tell you,
Apologies, Your Honor. We asked for the court's indulgence as it seems that the witness is working out some technical issues.
Certainly.
Would it be okay if both timers pause the time and as
Yeah,
we're coming?
time should be stopped. And if you need to do something to communicate with your witness, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I greatly apologize. It seems to be a Wi-Fi issue on my witness's end. I believe she's going to be using our other witness's laptop to be continuing this examination.
Okay. Looks like she's back.
so sorry.
No problem. You may continue.
Ma'am, you were just telling us about what happened on January 6th. Tell us how you investigated.
Yes, see, so I showed up at the venue at 7 a.m. and I was in the parking lot with my camera in hand. And I was waiting, but nobody showed up until at 12:45, Toni and her coach came. See, I hoped to see Shauna wondering about them, but she wasn't there. Not then.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, at 2:27, I saw someone all covered up with a mask and a hood over their face, holding something that looked like a hammer or a wrench. And they went into the building, and I was like, okay, weird. But you see, I was still waiting for Shauna to pull up, you know?
Well, what happened after that?
Well, then a few minutes later, that hooded figure burst through the main doors of the parking lot and threw what she was holding into the bushes. And she took her mask off her face, and my jaw literally went like this. It was on the floor. Because guess what? That hooded figure was Shauna Eckhart.
Ma'am, after you saw Shauna Eckhart, what did you do next?
See, I was recording this whole thing. But when I saw her get back into the car, I stopped recording to pull my car closer to the bush to see what she threw in.
And what was that?
It was a wolf mask and a metal hammer. And I took pictures of both of these, by the way. And while I was doing all of this, Shauna was speeding out the parking lot, so I couldn't catch her.
Did you do anything else after that?
Well, I couldn't do anything immediately because I couldn't process what had just happened. But you see, the next day, on January 7th, and we all know this, Nikki Corrigan was clubbed in the knee by some mysterious person. Oh, this all made sense to me.
Ma'am, I just want to make one thing clear. Where was Toni Herding throughout all of this?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
As to lack of personal knowledge. May I explain?
You may.
There's been no foundation laid onto the record that this witness would know where Toni Herding was throughout this entirety of the crime.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. The witness has previously laid the foundation that she was following the scandal between Toni Herding and Nikki Corrigan, which led her to, and I quote, snoop on Toni Herding on the days leading up to the attack. We believe that we've laid sufficient foundation that she knows what was happening on the days leading up to the attack with Toni Herding involved.
Objections overruled. Witness can answer if she knows.
Ma'am, let me just repeat my question. Where was Toni Herding throughout all of this?
Well, she wasn't quite present. I mean, she was just doing her thing. See, whenever I saw her on the ice, she was just doing her boring routines. But she kept on saying, Shauna, leave me alone.
Thank you, Shatz. I have nothing further at this point, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, Ms. Schatz.
Good evening.
I'd like to begin right where you left off with the day of the crime. Now, on that day, you were parked outside the arena watching for tea because customers are lined up and you need to keep the tea brewing, right?
Hold on, just to clarify, I believe you're talking about January 6th, which is not the day of the incident, actually.
Ma'am, you just said January 6th isn't the day of the incident?
Yes, it's January 7th when Nikki Corrigan got clubbed in the knee.
All right, ma'am. Well, at around 2:30, that tea boiled because Shauna ran out wearing a mask and holding a hammer.
Yes.
And both of which she discarded in the bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you told us moments ago, you took a picture of those.
I did.
You'd recognize those pictures if I showed them to you?
Of course.
Your Honor, let the record reflect we're going to be screen sharing Exhibit 13A and B, which are already in evidence.
Record will so reflect.
Ma'am, these are the items you saw Shauna throw?
Yes.
All right. And after the attack, you wrote an article rooting for Toni's innocence.
I did.
And you published this article through your company.
I did. The moon.
Your Honor, my apologies, go ahead.
No, that's it. Just the moon.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 21.
Any objection?
No objection at this point, Your Honor.
Permission granted.
Ma'am, is this a fair and accurate copy of that article you wrote?
Yes.
The state moves to enter Exhibit 21 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
21 is admitted.
Let's take a closer look at that news article. Because on that article, you labeled Toni Herding as an innocent person, right?
I did. That's what I believe.
That you would even stake the reputation of your company on it.
I did write that.
So let's set the scene. and see if there's a reason we shouldn't trust you. Because, ma'am, you're a really good liar, aren't you?
Not as good as some politicians out there, but yes, I would say so.
Because just a month after you published that article, well, your boss, she called you into her office at the Moon.
Oh, she did.
And she was absolutely furious, wasn't she?
Oh, yes, I believe so.
Because Toni Herding has just been arrested,
Yep.
and your article made your company look like fools.
That's what she said.
And she even told you you better hope Toni Herding's innocent, because if not, you're out of job.
Yes, that's what she said.
And ma'am, you love your job, don't you?
I do.
And a girl's got to do what they got to do to keep that job.
Yes.
So let's make this perfectly clear for the members of the jury. Judge Nelmark didn't ask you to testify today, did he?
No, he didn't.
Your attorney, Miss Ang, she didn't ask you to testify either.
Mm-mm.
You volunteered to be here testifying in court today.
I did. Because I want to defend someone that I believe is innocent.
You're not only defending someone, ma'am. Testifying for Toni Herding would save your job.
Yes. And isn't that great? It's a win-win situation. Of course I'd take it.
No further questions.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor. May the witness be excused.
Witness is excused.
Thank you.
Defense may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls my client, Miss Toni Herding, to the stand. May I proceed?
You may.
Good evening, ma'am. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good evening. My name is Toni Herding.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
I compete in figure skating.
How'd you get into that?
Well, when I grew up, I lived next to this big lake that freezes over every winter. So when I was 4, my mother took me skating, gave me a pair of my cousin's hand-me-downs, put me on the ice, and didn't want to come off.
Out of curiosity, ma'am, did they get you to come off the ice eventually?
Yes, but only when my dad convinced me that if I didn't come off, summer would come, ice would thaw, I'd fall into the lake. Now, when the summer did come, that's actually when I started skating on a real rink.
Ma'am, do you have any dreams as an ice skater?
Yeah. I wanted to be an Olympian. Don't laugh.
Why do you want to be an Olympian, ma'am?
Well, of course, for the fame, the prestige, the recognition for my sport, but also for the prize money and sponsorships, because I needed to support both me and my stepsister, Shauna Eckhart, whom you've heard of a few times today.
Did you need to support her financially?
Yeah. I remember one time in late 2021, she called me crying, saying that she was just fired from her job and she asked me for money. And I had to tell her that I wouldn't have any unless I became an Olympian.
Apart from losing her job, was there any other reason Miss Eckhart needed money?
I remember visiting her in the hospital a lot when she was a child, but also as an adult. She was really sick often. She needed money for meds. And looking back, that was a while before she was diagnosed with cancer.
So when you told her that you needed to become an Olympian before you got the money, what did Miss Eckhart say?
She said, "Do it for us, whatever it takes."
Ma'am, let's get into the details. What exactly do you need to do to qualify for the Olympics?
Well, in theory, it's simple. All I have to do is to place first in a national tournament that was also on the year of an Olympics tournament.
And were you on track to do that?
Yeah, I was. I put all my time into skating, didn't have anything better to do. And in the 2019 season, I was fortunate to have secured all wins across the board. But that was before Nikki Corrigan, of course.
Just for the jury's sake, who's Nikki Corrigan?
They were a new skater at the time. The first time I saw them was, let's say, 2020 Nationals. Uh, she stepped on the rink. And she was just amazing.
And who won that competition?
Corrigan, of course.
Ma'am, did you ever beat Miss Corrigan in a competition?
Oh, no, not at the time. But I knew that if I worked hard enough, I was confident that I could beat her in the 2022 Nationals, just in time for the Olympics, too.
Let's talk about how you were going to do that. Do you need to sabotage her to win?
No,
Well, then, how did you want to win?
fair and square. Simple as that. If that meant more hours on the ice training, more time spent studying Nikki Corrigan's footage clips, I was all in.
Did anyone support you in doing this?
Yeah, my coach and also Shauna. She took a lot of notes that she showed me on my movements and routines. And at the end of every practice, she'd make sure to remind me to do it for us, Toni, whatever it takes.
All right, so just before the 2022 Nationals, were you confident that you could beat Miss Corrigan?
I was, but unfortunately, she was attacked just a day before.
I want to talk about that day of the attack. Where was it?
It was at the Cabo Arena, and that was the competition rink. I was there too.
And when was she attacked?
I'd say around early afternoon, 2:30.
Ma'am, were you here throughout the entire trial?
I was.
And did you see the prosecution pull up text messages of you and Miss Eckhart?
Yes, I saw that.
Were you texting her about attacking Miss Corrigan?
No, I was asking her for a cigarette, actually. Uh, I really needed one.
What do you mean?
Well, it was just a bad habit I picked up from all the stress of skating. I don't do it anymore, but it was the day before nationals. I was really stressed and I needed to relax.
I want to talk about that day of the competition. What did you do?
Well, I did what I'd been training for this whole time. I stepped onto the rink, took a deep breath, and I let the ice carry me. I remember on that day, all of my spins held center. Every takeoff felt right. I stuck all of my landings. And by the time I finished, I knew that I'd done the best I ever could have on that routine.
And did you see your scores, ma'am?
I did. It was higher than I could have ever hoped for, given it was the Nationals.
And was it higher than everyone else's?
It was by a pretty fair margin, too.
So, ma'am, did you win the Nationals?
I did. For the first time in 2 years. I just remember when I got up on that podium, Shauna and Darcy's faces when they were clapping for me. It was a dream come true.
And did you qualify for the Olympics?
According to the rules, I did. But I don't know anymore.
What do you mean you don't know anymore?
Well, take it from what you heard this trial. They're saying that Shauna Eckhart, my stepsister, attacked my opponent, and that I was somehow involved in all of it. As if I spent all those hours on the ice practicing to cheat.
Ma'am, did you need Miss Eckhart to do that to win?
No. All I needed was to practice. And all I needed my stepsister to do was to support me, to believe in me. But now I can't help but wonder, did she even ever believe in me?
Ma'am, did you talk to Miss Eckhart about this?
We had a huge fight about this, yes. I said I'd do whatever it took to beat Miss Corrigan, but not like this. She shouldn't have done this. I'm not grateful for it. But I told her, what's done is done. You made your bed. Now die in it.
Thank you for your time. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Hello.
Hello.
Let's talk about some things we can agree on. We can agree you had a motive to commit this crime.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just need the money that came with that Olympic spot. Ma'am, you needed the power that came with it too.
The power? I don't know what you mean by that, ma'am.
What I mean by that is, you would have the power to financially support your sick sister.
Yes, I needed to do that.
It's fair to say you love your sister.
I do.
Your sister. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but she was dying of cancer.
Yeah, it's okay, ma'am. Yeah, she passed away a few months ago.
While your sister was alive, well, as her sister, you wanted the best cancer treatments for her.
Of course. Who wouldn't want to save their dying sister?
Ma'am, the only way you could save your dying sister was by winning the Olympics.
Yeah. Not by
There was
cheating, ma'am.
Ma'am, you said not by cheating. Well, there was a problem with your plan about winning the Olympics, wasn't there?
Go ahead, ma'am. What was it?
Ma'am, there was one person who everyone else thought would beat you.
Yeah, Nikki Corrigan.
And it's not just that everyone else thought she would beat you. She had been beating you for months.
Yeah, she was an amazing skater. I'll give her that.
You'd also give her all your gold medals that never went to you because she beat you. Wouldn't you say that?
I wouldn't willingly give them to her, but she deserved the ones she won.
Ma'am, you think you deserve a spot in the Olympics?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Well, let's see if you conspired to cripple your competition again. Because you
I don't-
had a bodyguard who was also your stepsister.
Yeah, she liked to say that she was my bodyguard. I never really got the whole thing.
Ma'am, you do get that your bodyguard attacked your competition.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And you actually texted her the day of the attack.
I did, yes.
On direct examination, you claimed that you were texting her about cigarettes because you were stressed.
Yeah, it was the day before nationals, ma'am. I was stressed.
Let's see if that's true. Stating for the record will now be screen showing Exhibit 7A and 7, or rather just 7A. Now, ma'am, the blue texts are yours.
Yeah, they're mine.
You said NC off ice.
I did say that.
And she said hammer emoji.
Yeah, I don't know why she sent that.
Ma'am, you said you don't know why she sent that. Surely you know that the next thing you said was, we need to get rid of the stuff before anybody finds it. That's what you said.
Yeah, I said that. We were smoking outside the arena. I didn't want my coach nor the press to find out, so we needed to get rid of cigarettes fast.
Ma'am, and then how she responded to your text about cigarettes was she said, ditched hammer and wolf emoji in the bushes.
Yeah, again, I don't know what she meant by the emojis, but yes, she put this burning cigarettes in the bushes.
Now, I'm no smoker, ma'am, but I'm pretty sure there isn't a smoke brand that's called Wolf and Hammer. Do I have that right?
None that I've come across of, no. You're right.
Ma'am,
And don't
continue.
go ahead, ma'am.
I apologize. This layout on Zoom, sometimes there's a bit of a lag.
It's okay.
Ma'am, if we take a look at your text, you never even sent a cigarette emoji, did you?
No, I don't really use those emojis, no.
Surely you use words.
Yeah,
Never in these texts do you say cigarette once.
no, but she knew I smoked and we talked about it earlier. But you're right, I didn't text that.
Well, let's see if your cigarette story is a cover-up. Ma'am, we're gonna play a game called What's in Your House. I'll name an item and you say yes or no if the FBI found it in your house. Hammer.
Okay. Yes, they did.
Ma'am, they didn't just find a hammer. They found a wolf mask.
Yeah, but I don't know why they're there because I didn't put them there.
You say you didn't put them there. Ma'am, you did put a no underneath the floorboards with those two things that said, I am the best.
No, I didn't put that there.
This note says, I will beat Nikki at all cost.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Ma'am, now you just said a moment ago that you didn't put it there. Let's see if that story makes sense. It's your sworn testimony that your bodyguard planned this attack by herself.
Yes, that's true.
You claim she was desperate to see you go to the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely wanted me to go. Yes.
You didn't tell the story to the FBI, did you?
I'm sorry, what?
You didn't tell this story that you're telling the members of the jury to the FBI.
They never asked me a question about it, so no.
Exactly. The first time you're talking about this is right now.
Yeah, because my directing attorney asked me some questions about it, but you're completely right, ma'am.
It's also completely right that you believe her master plan was to hide evidence in your house.
Yeah, I mean, I keep a spare key under my doormat for my house, and Shauna Eckhart knows where it is, so she could get into my house at any time.
Ma'am, she didn't hide critical pieces of evidence in her own house.
No, she didn't.
She didn't throw it away in the garbage.
No.
She didn't, bury it in the woods somewhere.
No, I wouldn't know if she did that.
Exactly. Because what you're telling us is that she hid critical evidence in the very person's house she wanted to go to the Olympics instead?
Yeah, that could be an explanation, but all I can tell you, ma'am, is that I didn't put those items there.
The person who needed you to go to the Olympics did instead.
That could have happened, yes, that you're right, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Whatever you say. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Redirect examination.
I believe we have no time, Your Honor.
All right. Witness is excused.
Your Honor, the
Yeah.
defense rested. And we can
Okay.
proceed to test closing statements, or we can take a break.
Plaintiff's counsel, do you wish to have a couple of minutes? Or are you ready to go?
We'd like a couple minutes, Your Honor.
All right. Just take 2 or 3 minutes. Come back when you're ready.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. If the court may have one moment. This is the timer speaking, and we just want to mention apologies for the tech issue earlier, as we were competing from China and we were having some issues with the VPN that we were using, so the internet was a bit laggy for some witnesses, and we want to apologize for all the inconvenience that it might have caused.
This is the judge. No worries. Tech issues happen in real court as well.
Your Honor, the state's back and we're ready to go.
That's also ready to proceed.
That's right. The defense is also ready to proceed.
All right. The state may proceed with your closing.
She conspired to cripple her competition. Two thieves plan a robbery. One has the brains, maps out the layout of the building. And the other? Well, they're the muscle. And they break into that building. And together, they turn their dreams of breaking into a bank a reality. Today, the reality of this case is the defendant was the brains and her bodyguard was the muscle. And just like those two thieves, they worked together to conspire against the competition. But why? You learned today that the defendant and the bodyguard were desperate. One was dying of cancer, and the other, well, her only skill that she had any hope of using to save her sister was skating. And her ticket out of that, and her ticket out was the Olympics. But you learned there was one problem. An ice skater named Nikki Corgan. Because she kept beating the defendant up to that point, she wasn't willing to take the gamble when it came to the Olympics. Rather, she was willing to conspire with her bodyguard to take a hammer and cripple her competition. And as the state, conspiracy is the first thing we've charged the defendant with. We had to prove the defendant worked together with the bodyguard to plan the attack. Now, members of the jury, there's already one thing we know beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's that the defendant, bodyguard, committed to helping, admitted to helping the defendant attack Ms. Corgan. She entered a plea deal. And that's why the second thing we've charged the defendant with was obstruction of justice, meaning the defendant stole or hid evidence from the crime scene. And we prove this defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt by focusing on two things: the competition and the conspiracy. So first, the competition. You learn from the coach the defendant trained day in and day out for years to be the best in the world. On cross-examination, you heard it wasn't only her dream to become an Olympian, it was her only way to help her sister. Folks, you could see her winning record on screen. That goal wasn't looking great after Miss Corgan started competing. You can count it for yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times she was beat by one person, Miss Corgan. Members of the jury, we showed you it's not a coincidence that Miss Corgan was the same competitor who was crippled by the defendant's bodyguard. That leads us to our second fact, the conspiracy. Today, the defense says, well, the bodyguard was a liar. Members of the jury, the evidence doesn't lie. The hammer and the wolf mask found in the defendant's floorboards doesn't lie. The only person who seemed to lie today was the defendant. Because members of the jury, she told you that the bodyguard hid those critical pieces of evidence in her home. That story isn't reasonable because it doesn't make sense. Imagine, the bodyguard is so desperate, she needs her sister to go to the Olympics to pay for her own cancer treatment. So she takes it into her own hands and cripples the competition. But then, all of a sudden, she switches her story and hides critical evidence not in her own house, not in the woods somewhere, not in the garbage, in the very person she wants to go to the Olympics' house. Members of the jury, we have a timeline of today. Today, you saw that the attack happened at 2:30 p.m. Then, a few minutes later, at 2:40, the attackers found a hammer and a wolf mask. And then those text messages. Now, members of the jury, the defendant said those texts were about cigarettes, but there were no cigarettes. Emojis, the word in these texts. Look at them yourself. They said Roger, hammer emoji, and wolf mask. And where did the FBI found a wolf mask and hammer? In the defendant's home. Just days before the crime. Now, in a few moments, you'll head into that deliberation room. The judge will give you a verdict form, like this one. And out of all the evidence we showed you today, it's going to boil this case down to 2 simple questions. Count 1 and count 2. Guilty or not guilty? And when you're handed this pen, members of the jury, I need you to remember one thing that was also written in pen. The defendant's words. I will beat Nikki at all cost. She conspired to cripple the competition. That's what the evidence shows. And that's why, as members of this jury, we'll ask you to look at the case with logic and find the defendant guilty because she conspired to cripple her competition.
Thank you. The defense may proceed with your closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. they've already got their guy. Everyone knows the game of Jenga, right? You take out one piece at a time, and when it falls over, you lose. You see, you'll take out the ones at the top, on the sides, but at the very end of the game, there's just one piece that you don't touch or your entire tower collapses. The centerpiece. And that's the game of Jenga. And that's the game the prosecution is playing today. And their centerpiece? Well, we all know that it's Shauna Eckhart. See, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the words of Miss Eckhart. But mind you, this is a woman who has every reason to lie for money, who's got 35 years of jail time ahead of her, and who blames my client for it all. And when the prosecution chose to believe in her, when they chose to drag Miss Herding into this, they've got a problem. Because they just took on the highest burden in our criminal justice system here today. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, what that means is that if you believe that it's even reasonable that Miss Eckhart committed this crime alone, the law says that the prosecution has failed. But members of the jury, when you walk into the deliberation room today, you'll realize that you're still asking the same old questions that the prosecutions just can't answer. 1, did my client need to commit the crime? And 2, did my client plan to hit Miss Corrigan? Let's look at the first part, whether Miss Herding ever even needed to commit the crime. I want you to ask yourself, what does my client get out of committing this crime? And just by sitting there in that defendant's chair, that damage to her reputation? Now that's worse than any second place finish. And Miss Rawlingson even admitted to you herself during cross-examination. If my client really was conspiring to hurt Miss Corrigan, why would she start trying harder than ever and skated better than she ever has? Because the fact is, members of the jury, Miss Herding didn't need to pull Miss Corrigan down for her to get onto that podium. And when the prosecution story simply makes no sense, it's not our job to find you the true culprit. But we did anyways. Because when my client had no reason to commit the crime, it was Miss Eckhart, who was unemployed but in desperate need of money because she was going to die. It was Miss Eckhart who signed this plea deal that you're looking at right now, so that as long as she points fingers, she could cut 35 years of sentence into 1.5. This is a plea deal, members of the jury, that Miss Eckhart cut because she was the one who needed to. Now, the second part, that my client never planned for the crime. If my client really did conspire with Miss Eckhart, as the prosecution alleges, members of the jury, what would you expect to see? Purchasing record of the tools? Surveillance footage? Well, they gave us all that they gave us was a text message and accused Miss Herding of not mentioning a cigarette using an emoji. Well, we don't have to prove to you these things. And that text message, we saw no mention of Miss Corrigan, no plans on there, just emojis. And you learn today from Miss Herding that she was simply asking for a cigarette. Members of the jury, smoking to cope with stress? That's nowhere near breaking someone's kneecaps. And they also want you to believe that my client covered up the crime by hiding the hammer and the mask. Well, do we see any forensic evidence? Any video footage? Any confession? Well, they want you to believe that my client is smart enough to erase all traces of DNA and fingerprints on the hammer and the mask, but dumb enough to hide it in her own room. What about a confession? Well, we did hear about those today. We heard about that a lot when Mr. Russell admitted to you during cross-examination, but that wasn't of my client. They're of Shauna Eckhart. The state, they want you to believe that this is a case where my client conspired to cripple her competition. Well, you learned today that the prosecution's case collapses on two very simple facts. It's no cause, because what does my client get out of this attack, members of the jury, and no communication? Because where did Miss Herding ever communicate with Miss Eckhart for the attack? And when the prosecution based their case on all of that, that takes us to this exact moment. In this exact moment where an innocent woman is in a defendant's chair. This exact moment where the prosecution presents you to a case based on Miss Eckhart and gives her a get out of jail free card. But they've already got their guy. Find my client not guilty.
Thank you. Is there a rebuttal argument for the state?
Your Honor, the state will not be giving a rebuttal argument.
Okay. That concludes the trial. Is there a bailiff or someone who can tell me how to proceed from this point forward?
Yes, thank you so much to both teams. This was an incredible final round. We're going to give our judges just a second to go ahead and fill out their ballots. And in the meantime, I would love to give a quick shout out to all of our incredible competitors in the final round. Round of applause to you all. This was absolutely phenomenal. I was blown away, as was the rest of the MockOn team. Superb job. So first, I'm going to go ahead and give some special recognition to all of our competitors, starting with the prosecution. So the prosecution in this round was from Modern Brain, and the students on the prosecution team were Siley Charlu, Audrey Ma, Vivian May, Anya Luo, Christiana Garcia, and Ethan Bai. Congratulations for making it this far. Excellent performance. And the defense team is actually composed of three different schools: UWC Changshu China, Shanghai American School, Concordia International School, Shanghai. And the students on the team for the defense are Abigail Kai, Leah Chang, Alice Tsao, Sydney Liu, Karen Ong, and Annie Lim. Congratulations to both teams. Now, if we could get our judges on screen as you finish your ballots, we'll go ahead and go through some brief comments. All right, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead with our judges in the order that I see bottom up on my Zoom screen. So Sam, why don't you go ahead and start with your comments? If you could give us your favorite moment from the trial, that would be great.
No, absolutely. Like, so first of all, I mean, obviously it goes without saying, fantastic job, both of y'all. Competing's never easy, and then making it through 4 rounds is a good bit of luck, but then what you've shown here shows exactly why you both deserve to be in the final round. I think I'll combine both my favorite moment with my biggest comment because, look, you guys did fantastic. In terms of comments, the biggest one I'll give is that I saw a lot of great advocacy. The big thing you're always going to do, though, is when it comes to like advocacy in person versus Zoom. There's a lot of overlap between the two, but there is some differences. And I think, particularly for those of y'all who do Zoom competitions again going forward or in person, maximizing and taking into account the differences is what's going to set you apart. Now, my favorite moment is, funnily enough, it's the fact that when you're dealing Zoom, there's a lot of great things about it, right? I'm sure the panel here and all of us are across the country and all that jazz, across the globe, in fact. But obviously, tech doesn't always work. So honestly, my favorite moment was the tech issue because you guys remained extremely poised. Look, I've been there. I've been there in practice. I've been there as a coach, and I am sweating bullets as soon as you see tech issues start popping up. But you guys didn't miss a beat. You made it through. You figured it out. You solved it. Those are the skills that are going to take you far. So for me, that was one of the best moments, and it's one I know that wasn't planned when we were coming into this. So amazing job, all.
Thank you so much, Sam. And next up, Will, if you could give us your comments and favorite moment from the trial.
Sure. I mean, I echo Sam. I mean, y'all are fantastic, and I love so much that you're doing this by choice, and you're choosing to use your extra time, presumably over summers or semester breaks or what have you, that you're choosing to do this additional competition. It's so commendable, because we all on the screen here know how much time this takes, as do you. So congrats on getting this far, and good job participating this weekend. I think my favorite moment in the trial was truly there was some great back and forth with witnesses and the crossing attorneys. Like those are always the moments that I look for where you're off script and you're reacting to the moment. And it was one really just like small moment from the defense witness at the end where like I think there was a tech issue and lag, and so the cross question came back and asked her to repeat her answer. It was just like, I love the moon. And it was like this like cute little like, and you said it twice, but you did it differently, but it was also real. It was just very reactive and very responsive, and I appreciated that because being real, especially like conveying that emotion on Zoom, is really hard to do, and I thought our witnesses did it well. Congrats to all of you.
Thank you, Will. Emberlyn, if you could give us your comments and favorite moment.
Yeah, of course. Great job to both teams. This was my first time judging high school mock, and truly, like, you guys are like on the level like collegiate mockers that I see. You guys were all amazing. It was a pleasure to watch. I think my favorite moments were the parts where you guys were very responsive to what was happening, and it's clear that you were listening. So I guess for the prosecution, during the cross of the defendant, there was a moment when you were crossing on like the text and like the smoking like alibi, I guess, for it, where it was clear you were listening very clearly to every word the witness was saying and you were kind of flipping it. And also for the defense, I felt the same way for the cross of the officer when you brought up the 3 C's and asked, is conspiracy like something you go into like looking for? So yeah, both of those moments really resonated with me because I like when crossers specifically are very attentive to what witnesses are saying. But yeah, overall, amazing job. Congrats to all of you.
Thank you, Emberlyn. Next, Josiah, comments and favorite moment.
Hi guys, echo the congrats from all the judges on this panel. Y'all should feel phenomenal about the performance you just gave. I was absolutely floored that this was a high school round. Y'all killed this. It was amazing. Favorite moment was kind of just the entire handling of the defendant, starting with the direct. I was really, really listening for like a real moment that someone in this position I think would have of like being accused of cheating in this way after having worked their entire life for something. And I thought you did that so well, brought a really appropriate emotional level to it that I really appreciated. And then my crosser came up and gave some appropriate kind of fire to what needed to happen to accuse this person of what's being, alleged in this crime. And I just really thought that was a great handling of emotional level and tone that can differ across what you're doing in this activity. So I thought that was expertly done. Great job to everyone in this round. Y'all were awesome.
Thank you so much, Josiah. Next, John, if we could have your comments and favorite moment.
Sure. Congratulations to all of you. I echo, it was remarkable that this was a high school round. I've coached both high school and college, and this was a phenomenal round. I'm going to start with my favorite moments. I thought the prosecution did a wonderful job of using tech. I really appreciated the zoomed in video, the timeline on closing that really made the texts about the evidence and the evidence found in the defendant's room so clear. I thought tech was used brilliantly. I agree with Josiah. My favorite part from the defense, I loved the emotional angle showing this person wouldn't cheat, they didn't need to cheat, and the emotion for the sibling as well, I thought was phenomenal. So really well done to both sides. For my comment for the round, y'all made some lack of foundation objections, and I really liked them. I thought there could have been a couple more, just claims where someone will say a big thing like a conspiracy exists, and I think it's good that y'all are keeping each other honest and saying, hey, where's the foundation for that? So really well done to both sides today, and congrats.
Thank you, John. Okay, next, Danielle, if you could give us your comments and favorite moment from the round.
Yes, for sure. I'm gonna say it again. Amazing job to everyone. It was truly such a pleasure to watch. I know this is a ton of work and you guys have had a long day, I imagine, as well. So thank you so much for keeping it engaging, interesting, and you all should be really proud of yourselves. My biggest comment I would say is very simple. Slow down. I feel like it's very hard to remain aware of that as you're speaking. I think about all the time how often I spoke when I did this in college, but it's just a general reminder for people who are not as familiar with the case and or not as familiar with your material. Just pausing, speaking slower can make all the difference, can make everything more digestible. In terms of my favorite moment, it came from the cross of the defendant, and my attorney was going through the text. You said something along the lines of, I'm no smoker, ma'am, but there's no cigarette brand called XYZ, which I think was just such a good question. I feel like you could have easily just read the text and gone from there. They're damning in and of themselves. But the way you said it was so unique. It was so authentic to your personality. And then my defendant, the way you responded was also so genuine. You were like, not that I've come across. And I just think you both did such a good job of elevating what was written and just making it your own using your personality. And it was a pleasure to watch. So amazing job. Thank you all.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, next I see Lindsay, comments and favorite moment.
Congratulations to both teams. A lot of my comments are echoing things that other judges have already said, but I think for both sides, I really appreciated how responsive both sides were to each other's cases. And on the P side, I also loved the use of visuals. And I also thought you guys had a really nice just structure to your examinations. This is the first time I've judged around where I hadn't read the case, and you guys made it really easy to follow the fact pattern with the way that you structured your examinations. And on the defense, I loved the use of emotion. So my highlight was also just everything with the defendant. I loved the emotion, the way that you used tone on the direct to generate sympathy and to rebut motive. And then on the cross, the rebuttal of their explanations of the text and the planted evidence as well. I thought those were great moments.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay, next I see Jeff. If you could give us your comments and favorite moment.
Yeah, so first off, guys, you did an excellent job. I was candidly really surprised at how responsive everybody was, right? Like, we're all smart people. It's really easy to kind of memorize a set of questions, but the sign of really good advocacy is to be able to use another side's words against them, use what's happening in the round against them. And I was just blown away by the fact that you guys were doing that at this point in your career. So I consider myself a technician. And so my favorite moment is going to be a little bit dry, but I think it's a really important thing. And that's when one of you on two separate occasions on a cross-examination had to launch into the impeachment process. And you said, is it your testimony that? The cool part of that, and maybe it's because I'm not just a technician, I'm a bully. When you do that, when you say, is it your testimony that? More often than not, the witness is going to be cowed and they're going to be like, yeah. They're going to want to get out of it. And so I think that was Abigail who did that. That was an excellent job, and make sure you do more of that. I always try to give like one, and frankly, almost every time I do a high school mock trial, I kind of give the same tip that I think is really helpful that I didn't learn until I was in my 30s. If you guys lose the contractions, your cross-examination questions communicate better. What do I mean by that? There's lots of, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you can't say this, you can't say that. If you slow it down and you say, you did not see an eyewitness there, you did not find fingerprints, you did not, you cannot, it just communicates way better. And so I would try to incorporate some of that into your cross examinations. But great job, guys. I'm super, super impressed.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And last but not least, Judge Nelmark, we would love to hear your comments and your favorite moment.
I'll start with my favorite moment. It's a very personal one. That's when we got done and I got to take the robe off because I came down to the courthouse for this and I think they turned the air off over the weekend. So I'm melting on this side. But despite the warmth, I really enjoyed the round. Everyone did a good job, better than what I often see in court, both from a substantive and a technology use perspective. I've been doing mock trial long enough that mock trial online didn't exist. In fact, the internet didn't exist when I started. But I'll give you one Zoom tip that I noticed. You're often on your screen with the director across looking at the witness that you're crossing, who is on one side of your screen or the other. But for your judges, the witnesses are in different orders than you may be seeing. So you think you're looking at the witness. In reality, you're looking off the screen when I'm looking at you. So that means everyone just has to look at the camera because there's no way to do it directionally. But really enjoyed it. Great job.
Thank you so much, Judge Nelmark. Now, from our end, we would love to go through and give some of our comments and favorite moments from the round. You guys did such a great job. So first, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Hank.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I know I had mic issues earlier. Perfect. So, as everyone said, this was an incredible round. I had so much fun watching. I think Zoom mock trial can sometimes be difficult to make entertaining, but from the witnesses to the attorneys, I was thoroughly entertained the whole time through. I'll start with just a comment. I think John touched on this earlier, but I think lack of foundation objections are so underrated because I would say it's the one that's most likely to get sustained if you're the one making the objection. It's one that usually makes sense, and I think in this trial it could have been used even more. I love the ones we heard. So as you're listening closely to a direct or a cross even, I always try to listen out for that just because I think it's a great way to show that you're being responsive to what's being said and that you know what's going on in trial, because sometimes people say crazy stuff and you miss it. But my favorite moments, I feel like I'm a bit on the spot. This is very hard to choose, but I think I'm going to have to give it to both of the closes. I was so blown away by how incredible you guys were. I've been doing college mock trial for 3 years, and those are college level closes. Very good ones at that. They were entertaining, they were dynamic, they were responsive. I thought they used evidence very well, and it was better than I could have done. So I was so impressed and so entertained. And I just want to congratulate you all again.
Thank you, Hank. Next, I'll turn it over to Chloe.
Yeah, guys, this was such a wonderful, wonderful round of mock trial. Like, we've been popping in and out of Zoom rooms all weekend, and this is genuinely such a fantastic round. I think my favorite part and favorite moments were kind of like the parts where there were really subtle things happening with both sides. So for defense, like on the defendant direct, you were talking about how, you were training to do really well at the Olympics, how you really wanted to skate well, and how that led into you doing this really great performance. And it was such a subtle way to phrase what you were doing, but at the same time, to me, that like cuts away from your motive. And I thought that was just such a clever use of like the case facts to build your story. So I thought that was fantastic. And then on the prosecution, I thought what was really, really amazing was how you kind of eased into your crosses. Like the transition was so smooth. You got kind of a banter going with the witnesses, and then you kind of built that up for your really big points. And so I think like those little like subtleties and like micro moments are so important in like a high level round of mock trial. And so that was just so, so well done.
Thank you so much, Chloe. And I'll round us out with my comments and my favorite moments. First of all, this was such a superb final round. I will say, one of the things that I really love about, I think what makes me think, I'm watching really great mock trial in general, is when you really stick not just to what is written in the case, but your argumentation is more so focused on, instead of what happened, does this actually make sense? Is what the arguments we're being presented with, are they really logical or not? And I always thought that that is just what makes the best mock trial, and is the mock trial I've always found most engaging. So I really felt that this final round was a hallmark of that on both ends. So much like really clear, does this make sense type arguments. And so in the same vein, my favorite moments were especially from the prosecution on the cross examinations, where you're really exposing like all sorts of logical inconsistencies with the defense theory, instead of just really sticking so much to, I need to get this evidence out, I need to get this evidence out. I really found that super persuasive. And my favorite moment on the defense was the witness performances. I thought those were just so compelling, and the realism was phenomenal. And so kudos to you all on doing that. Really, really excellent performances. I know you must be anxiously waiting, competitors, for the results of the round. So I see Ben on screen now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. It looks like the results are in.
Hi, folks. I imagine you're probably waiting. But before I reveal the winner, I have to build up the anticipation just a little bit. We had 9 ballots. 6 of those ballots were decided by 1 point. 1 point. I am happy to announce that the champion of the 5th annual Tournament of Champions is the combination school UWC Shanghai and Concordia. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Superb performance from both our prosecution team, Modern Brain, and defense team from UWC Changshu China, Shanghai American, Concordia International Schools. You all were so fantastic from both ends. You should be so proud of your performance and all the hard work you put in. And to all of our viewers, we hope you enjoyed what we think is a stellar final round. To all of our judges, thank you so much for volunteering your Sunday night to watch some really great mock trial and support our competition and support these incredible competitors. We appreciate you all so much. Live stream is up. Please feel free to come back and watch this round whenever you want. But thank you all for spending your Sunday night with us, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Congratulations, folks, to both teams.
Congrats to both teams.
Thank you so much for judging,
for
and thank
judging.
you, Modern Brain, for completing this.
You guys were amazing.
You guys are amazing. It was awesome.
Thank you. You guys were awesome. It was a really cool round.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, judges.